Welcome to Betting Weekly Live. You're with Dan Roebuck and alongside me, Will White. Over the course of the next half an hour or so, we will be talking our way through all of the best bets when it comes to the Friday night soccer. We will be taking a look at selected games in the ATP Tour event in Beijing, China. Plus, we've got the early market moves for you when it comes to this weekend's NFL games. And we'll take a look at some of the feature fixtures when it comes to the soccer across Europe. And we also got a best bet in Major League Soccer as well. Share your winners with us. Just tag us in at Because We Win. Watch out for a Betting Weekly newsletter that's going to be coming your way. Sign up. It's for free. Head to bettingweeklystudios.com. Will, how are you? How's your form been over the course of the midweek action?
Good day to you, Dan, and good day to all the viewers out there. It's we're right in the thick of football season now, with Champions League returning last week, Europa League this week, Conference League next week, I believe. So we've got the midweek fixtures all covered for you here on Bet Rivers on Betting Weekly Live. And we're looking forward to a packed and very interesting weekend of football coming up too.
Yeah, just on last night, I think every single bettor was cursing Karabakh for one reason or another. They arrive late for the game. They don't know what the traffic's like on Tottenham High Road of an early evening. I think most of us, when we were watching the show yesterday, we were all on both teams to score. No, you were on Karabakh on a big handicap. I still can't work out how they didn't at least score last night against Spurs.
Yeah, unbelievable, really. They won the XG battle. They missed a penalty. They had a goal disallowed. They had more shots on target, more corners, and they somehow lost the game 3-0. I was on Karabakh plus 2.25 goals. Absolute heartbreaker. The red card after 7-8 minutes. I thought it was a ticket ready to be cashed. But yeah, such is betting and such is the variance in this game. But we move on, and we've got a good set of games to look forward to today, and a great weekend coming up too.
Yeah, get your comments in, get your bets in for tonight's action. If you fancy anything in Europe or indeed across the weekend as well, we'll be highlighting your selections as well as our own. As Will has pointed out, we're going to kick off looking at some of the Friday night football that is coming your way. Auxerre, Brest, Paris Saint-Germain, Rennes are the two Liga games here, Will. I mean, Brest are an odd one, aren't they? I'm not quite sure what to make them so far this season because they did so well last campaign. But they started badly this season, obviously, with that defeat against Marseille. But they should be an Auxerre side here who have been pretty dreadful. They've lost their last four. And on the face of it, you look at those prices and you think Brest up plus 50 might be a bit of a play. What do you think for the Auxerre Brest game that starts pretty soon, 1 p.m. Eastern?
In terms of the match odds, I think actually the market is quite fair. I think Brest outperformed last season. They certainly outperformed the underlying metrics. And although Auxerre have had a really bad start to the season, they have been getting supported by sharp money in Asia. So you will see money coming for them quite often. But I've got an angle into the goals market here, and I feel quite tentative about it just because this could be a cagey game, given how both teams have started the season and where they are in the standings. But if you look at the underlying data, the overs just absolutely stands out here at minus 115. The line at 2.5, if you try and correlate that with the underlying data, it just doesn't make any sense. Auxerre have gone over 2.5 and 4 of 5 so far this season. Brest 3 of 5, but the other two games that went under really should have gone over. But if you look at the total XG created by these two teams and allowed by these two teams, Auxerre they're averaging 3.13 total XG per 90, and Brest 3.59 total XG per 90. So that doesn't really correlate at all with the over 2.5 line. Yeah, I'm happy to bet that minus 115 here. I think that's my angle in.
So overs rather than play on the money line. Fox Fee's been on suggesting, can we trust Brest to get a result with their upcoming match in midweek? I mean, yeah, they're going to be focusing on the Champions League, obviously, here. So maybe an overs play is the way to go. Paris Saint-Germain, Rennes, Will. We've got Paris Saint-Germain short price favourites, as you would imagine, minus 240, tie plus 390, Rennes plus 575. I don't know whether you think that the new Champions League format might favour Paris Saint-Germain, or it might be same old when they get to the knockout stages and they'll comfortably get to those spring fixtures. In terms of this game on Friday, is there a chance that Rennes and might be able to shock Paris Saint-Germain here. Obviously, Paris Saint-Germain away at Arsenal in the Champions League next midweek, so I presume there's going to be a little bit of rotation. How do you see the game in the French capital?
I think the market is looking at PSG quite nervously here. It's not often you see them at minus 240 at home in Ligue, but they're pretty diminished by injuries. Vitinha, Asensio, Nuno Mendes, and of course Donnarumma not in the squad. And I think in particular Nuno Mendes and Vitinha might be quite a big miss in this game. Beraldo, the replacement for Nunes at left back, is not much of an attacking threat. And then Rennes seem to be quite fashionable, I think, this season. The market makers seem to be impressed by them. Money seems to come for them in most of their games. I think the market's very impressed by their new signing Albert Gronbeck from Bodo Glimt, who looks to be a player. But ultimately, their away form is quite poor. They have lost 2 from 2 this season at Strasbourg and Reims. And this is the hardest place to go in Ligue 1, and not many teams come away avoiding defeat. I don't really have an angle into the match odds. I think the market's been quite shrewd here in taking into account those PSG injuries. But I do like both teams to score yes, which is quite an attractive. Last time I looked, it was minus 127. Rennes have scored in every game this season, as have PSG. And PSG have conceded in 4 of 5. The diminished PSG squad does put me off a little bit, and there is some talk of Bradley Barcola starting from the bench and maybe Kangin Lee starting instead. But, you'd expect PSG to get on the score sheet here at home, almost certainly. It's more of a question as whether Rennes will score. And I think they've got the firepower to trouble PSG here. And both teams to score yes, minus 127.
Steve says, actually, I think Brest might win tonight. Auxerre looks poor, talking about the other game. And also, Ming Chung's been on saying, hello, boys. Brest, actually, one of the best teams in France, despite a poor reputation, potentially just on the money that Bet Rivers have taken on those games. Incidentally, Brest, 90% of the money, 80% of the tickets on Brest, and most of the money on overs as well, which is obviously a ticking Will's box in terms of what we like here on the show. I just thought maybe Rennes might be able to score. They might be able to score first 4 of their 5 goals this season. They've scored in the first half, or in 4 of the 5 matches. Maybe sort of double chance. Rennes at half time at minus 106 might be a way to play it. Most of the money has gone on Paris Saint-Germain, incidentally, 99% of the tickets. And most of the money has gone on overs as well. And it's interesting to see what the team's going to be, because there has been a little bit of cash on Dembele, under 4.5 shots, and Kolo Muani just to score. But obviously, team news is going to be key for those particular bets.
I think they'll both start, Dembele and Kolo Muani. Yeah.
Valladolid, Mallorca, we can mention. Will, this is the game in La Liga tonight. Look, I think Mallorca scuppered a lot of unders plays on Monday, a 93rd minute goal to win the game. But they did win the game. They are favourites against Valladolid, who won first time out this season, but haven't managed to win since. But the total goals line, just for those that like the over and under half goals, I mean, it's very short, isn't it? In terms of under 2.5, under 1.5, you can go plus 140, but there's never that much wriggle room when it comes to an under 1.5 goal line. Will, how do you see the Valladolid-Mallorca clash?
Mallorca are a team I like, not necessarily in this game, and they tend to be much stronger at home than away, although they did kind of disprove that away at Betis midweek. The thing about La Liga at the moment is they've had 2 midweek fixture cards in a row, so there's been a very congested fixture schedule, and teams have had to kind of manage their squads accordingly. For this game, Mallorca have had an extra day's rest. And like you said, they were impressive in that last-minute away victory to Betis midweek. They've had a pretty impressive start under a new manager, 6th in the table. Valladolid, on the other hand, I have them rated as the worst team in La Liga, although they have been getting support in the Asian markets by some very sharp players. So there must be something about them that the sharp bettors like. I just think Mallorca are a tough nut to crack. Valladolid have home advantage, which is big in La Liga, especially in a congested fixture schedule. Mallorca are also missing key striker Vedat Mariki. And I think perhaps both teams would settle for a draw. Valladolid would get them out of the relegation zone, at least temporarily. And Mallorca currently sit in the European positions, albeit very early in the season. Perhaps both teams would take a tie here. And I was interested at plus 195. I see it shortened by 5 ticks, which makes sense because of the low goal line in particular. Maybe that's a bet, but for me, it's just a lean at the moment.
Thanks, Ming. Yeah, you got a hot dog for us today, Dan. Yes, my visual is somewhere knocking around. Behave yourself, young lady. Dortmund Bochum, we can talk about as well. I'm not quite sure what to make about Dortmund so far this season. Will they're very short price favourites here at minus 420. Nuri Sahin in charge. I think he promised more front-footed football this term after last season when they were a sort of counter-attacking side. They'd done brilliantly, of course, under Terzic getting all the way to the Champions League final. Bochum are 9-1 here. Is there any sort of angle in Germany, again, producing an awful lot of goals in the Bundesliga? It's under and over 3.5 goals for the goal line. Any thoughts on Dortmund Bochum tonight?
Oof. Yeah, Dortmund, they're a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde, and I find it hard to work them out. But what seems to be quite apparent is at home they're very, very strong, and away from home that they can be very up and down. Logic suggests a high-scoring Dortmund win here, but the market very clearly reflects that. I mean, Bochum have been very, very poor so far this season, losing 3 in a row to start the season before an undeserved draw really at home to Holstein Kiel in the last round. They lost the XG battle there quite convincingly. Dortmund have a UCL game, a Champions League game, midweek. Although this is a Friday game, so they've got plenty of time to prepare for that. But I'm just not so keen to back them on a big handicap here. I think minus 2 goals is the main Asian line. But I've been trying to find an angle into this game, and one player I really like at Dortmund is Jamie Gittens, the young English talent. Dortmund seem to have, and lots of German teams actually seem to have this propensity to take young English talented players and really allow them to flourish in the Bundesliga. But Jamie Gittens, there's currently no odds available on him to either have a shot on target or anytime goal scorer. That's probably because he's only started 1 Bundesliga game so far this season. But keep your eyes on the BetRivers website. Keep your eyes on that anytime goal scorer or to have a shot on target market. Anything around plus 200, anytime goal scorer, even a bit shorter than that if he starts. I believe bets avoided and stake returned if he doesn't start. I've got a feeling he might start here. He scored twice off the bench in the Champions League last week against Bruges. He also scored twice in the only game he started so far this season on the opening day against Eintracht Frankfurt. He's averaging an astonishing 1.68 shots on target per 90 so far this season. So, I mean, anything minus 150, maybe even a little short than that for any time shot on target over 0.5. That would definitely be of interest.
Yeah, that's Jamie Gittens, who's dropped the bino. We're told, incidentally, Bochum haven't been great this season. Had a bit of a soft spot for him last campaign, but they lost Sturger, Asano, Schlotterbeck all left, all their main goal scorers from last season, and the players that they've got in haven't really replaced that sort of threat. 99% of the money on Dortmund, incidentally, and 80% of the tickets on overs for that game. One game that I didn't put up on the graphic, that's my fault, is Milan Lecce, but you've got a line in here potentially on Milan Lecce regarding a player that's been good for us already this season, Will.
Yeah, I do. Just a quick comment there on the Asian line there. I was kind of trying to build my roadmap of how to bet this game last night in my head. And I was thinking, you know what, Milan on the minus 1.25 look a bit too attractive. But I want to back Lecce on the plus 1.5. So I was thinking I'd back some of the minus 1.25 and then look to build a middle on the plus 1.5. I didn't actually do it. And it's played out exactly to that plan. The main line is now minus 1.5 Milan, but I'm not so keen on Lecce. Not enough to pull the trigger anyway. I just generally think Lecce are quite underrated. But then Milan, if you look at how they their performance against Inter last weekend, it was very, very impressive. Fonseca's definitely got the supporters on side now after.
Has he turned the corner, do you think? Because he was under a lot of pressure, wasn't he?
He was under a lot of pressure, but I think, that performance was just so impressive against local rivals in the biggest game of the season for them, they were pretty dominant. But what I do like in this game, two players I like on the over 0.5 shots on target. We're going there again with Tijani Reinders, who is averaging 1.05 shots on target per 90 this season, trading at -125 on Bet Rivers currently. I like the over. We hit with him earlier in the season. He's playing in a more advanced position. He's making late runs into the box, and that's reflected in the data in terms of his shots on target. Lecce had conceded 10 shots on target against in the last match away at Parma. And then as an alternative, I also quite like Ruben Loftus-Cheek to have a shot on target here as well. He also plays in that kind of, in the 10 really, in the traditional 10. He's likely to start here, I think. Probably about a 70% chance he starts. Stake refunded anyway if he doesn't. So both of those two, I think they're pretty good value.
Time to talk a little bit of tennis because there is action coming up in China. Overnight, really, just past midnight, we will have the Lehecka Bautista Agut game, the Kabolik Kotov game. I think he's first on court in Beijing at around about 11 p.m. Eastern, and then a little bit later on overnight. If you're watching these games, if you're playing these games, you'll know the approximate start times. Yannick Sinner, who's the futures favourite for this one, out around about 1:30 a.m. Eastern, and as you can see, expected to win his match against Rowan Safalin. And then the early game tomorrow morning for US bettors, 8:30 a.m. approximately. You can see that Manarino-Medvedev clash. We've got a couple of short price favourites. Medvedev and Sinner should go through. I mean, we're talking about the futures favourite and the third favourite in the shape of Medvedev. But the other games might be of some sort of interest. We got Kaboli against Kotov, -190, +150. And then the Lehecka Bautista Agut game, even tighter here. And Bautista Agut has got a decent head-to-head record against Lehecka. Is that something potentially that bettors can get with? I know that tennis isn't your main focus these days, but it was for a good while. And I know you're still across the ATP Tour action. Anything catch your eye with the games that are sort of overnight into tomorrow in Beijing?
Yeah, Dan, I don't think Lehecka deserves to be such a strong favourite here. I think Bautista Agut at +148 is quite attractive. The head-to-head is 3-0 Bautista Agut. One was a straight sets win earlier this month in Davis Cup. I believe it was on indoor hard. The surface here is playing very, very slow. And I don't think that necessarily suits Bautista Agut. In fact, I think he'd prefer it a little bit quicker, and Lehecka might quite like it that little bit slower. But, it's just hard to justify such a short price up against a 3-0 head-to-head. Lehecka is, I believe, 14 years the junior, and so that's probably factored in here. And then, these two players, they're on different trajectories career-wise. Bautista Agut, I'm not sure if he's retiring at the end of the season, but it's likely to be his last season on tour. He seems to have had a bit of a renaissance in the past few months, though, and yeah, I quite like Bautista Agut, and I quite like the over 22.5 games as well. I can see Bautista Agut grinding this out in a long three-setter.
So take note of that if you're playing on the ATP Tour. Plenty of comments coming in regarding the football and indeed one or two other sports as well. Byron's been on saying Brest team total over 1.5 at +130. Auxerre have been shipping goals recently. Also talking about hot dog for tomorrow. Mainz, Brentford, Freiburg, all to score 2 goals at +485. Ming's been back on, says I really like Como to win again this weekend after that win against Atalanta. So just 1 or 2 selections and tips coming in from our viewers. If you are watching, give us your picks in for the weekend action. We'll get to those games shortly. In terms of tennis, we've had some sizable bets and winners over the course of the last few days when it comes to the action in Beijing as well. $5,000 bet on Andrei Rublev that managed to score also big bets on Ugo Humbert and also Nakashima and Davidovich, all coming good for Bet Rivers bettors. There is, of course, more NFL action coming away. These are the money line prices when it comes to week 4, just to give you a taste of where Bet Rivers have taken money in terms of the percentages of cash that's been played so far, and obviously it's still early days. Dolphins -1 at the Titans, taking a fair chunk. Bears -3 against the Rams. Seahawks, Lions under 46.5 points is popular. Panthers at +4.5 against the Bengals, and Bengals under 47 total points has been popular as well. And in terms of moneyline plays, Jets at the Broncos, 49ers against the Patriots, or should I say Jets versus Broncos, Steelers at the Colts, Chiefs at the Chargers, and the Bengals at the Panthers have all taken significant money so far ahead of NFL Week 4. Obviously, we'll have a full rundown on Monday when it comes to the big winners and losers when it comes to the NFL. Let's get back to some of the soccer that we've got coming up over the weekend. Massive weekend football across Europe. One thing that has obviously garnered an awful lot of attention, Will, when it comes to the Premier League, is the absence of Rodri for Manchester City in their game against Newcastle. There's been some big bets on Manchester City ahead of their game away at Newcastle, which is a 7:30 Eastern start on Saturday. I don't know what our viewers think about this, because the futures line for City has gone massively out and Arsenal's come in. Is this simply because Rodri is going to be missing for the foreseeable? And in terms of the game at the weekend, I noticed that the prices, Will, from last season are very, very similar. I don't know if Newcastle are going to be filled in at around about 4-1. What's your thoughts on the whole Rodri situation? Do you think that bettors, market makers, and just the media are over-egging it a little bit, or do you see something that you have to adjust your numbers for because of his absence?
Fascinating, isn't it, really? I mean, I feel terrible for him. It's a devastating injury and he's out for the whole season, like you say. The market has reacted accordingly. I mean, the market is reacting according to the underlying data of City performances with and without Rodri. Even though he's only started, I believe, one Premier League game so far this season, if you go back through the entirety of his City career, it's quite astounding the impact he has. In terms of the outright market, the other thing the outright market has to factor in is the potential for City to get a points penalty applied this season due to the independent panel's adjudication of their alleged 115 breaches of Premier League financial fair play and other regulations. So, you've kind of got these two huge factors to build into your pricing. I think if City had Rodri and there was no independent panel adjudication over them, they'd be almost certainly minus money to win the Premier League, I think, right now. The underlying data suggests that they're significantly better than Arsenal. Liverpool have had a very, very strong start to the season in terms of the underlying data. But yeah, right now, I'm not sure exactly what the outright price is on BetRivers. I'd imagine maybe
plus 130, I think, City to win the title.
It's probably about right. You've got to factor it into your modeling, right? I've got a 30% chance in my model that they get a significant enough points penalty applied this season to disqualify them from being able to win the league, let's say. And then Rodri moved them up in my fair price from, I think it was plus 120 before the Rodri injury, and it's now out to plus 150. So, it's quite a bit of adjustment. They could bring in Zubimendi in the January transfer window. I'm sure
if they can persuade him to come.
Yeah, well, yeah, evidently he's had a turnaround and he wishes he'd gone to Liverpool, but Liverpool, Arsenal, and City might all be after him in the transfer window. So yeah, it's a huge, huge deal. In terms of the City Newcastle game itself, I've got a funny feeling Guardiola's going to set up defensively here. I think he's going to want to try and cover that Rodri absence with bringing perhaps Rico Lewis into the midfield, playing Gundogan in the 10, and maybe Grealish and Bernardo either side, and leave the two hot wide players in Savinho and Doku on the bench. And I think Isak is also doubtful for Newcastle, so I think it might set up for an uncomfortable bet on the under 3.5. But it's not an official bet for me. I want to see the lineups before I make that decision.
Don't blame you. Incidentally, 98% of the tickets, 93% of the money on Manchester City with BetRivers. So as far as the BetRivers bettors are concerned, Rodri's absence does not matter at all. And also money for the overs as well. Betting Weekly Studios head honcho says City also finding it impossible to sign replacements Danny Olmo refused to speak to City. Impossible to sign any player on any kind of length of contract. And this is going back to the charges. Simon says, I think City might be disturbed with all the stuff that's going on around the club, injuries now, etc. Newcastle away is tough. St James's Park will be buzzing. Don't think Newcastle will lose here. I think there's going to be a lot playing the double chance on that game, isn't there? And Steve says...
Well, the +1 Asian, I think that's a good shout, actually, the +1 Asian.
Definitely. No line on phone to score from outside the area yet, says Steve. Look, I mean, they had so many shots against Arsenal that they just didn't manage it at all. There has been some significant bets, some 4-5-figure bets on City draw no bet. These are very, very short prices, and also City double chance at like -500. Good luck with those, obviously, if you're playing very, very short. Just to focus on some of the other games that we've got, and there are some massive games, Will, across Europe this weekend. Interesting to get viewers and indeed your good selves thoughts on the Bayern Munich by Leverkusen game, because Bayern Munich have started so well here, and I think everyone thought there was going to be a little bit of a bounce, but Vincent Kompany was just an odd appointment for many ways. I don't know if they're playing for him. I don't know if they're playing for themselves or the club, but it's been a record-breaking start. 4 wins from 4, +13 on the goal difference, 29 goals across 6 games in all competitions is a club record. They're minus money here, and in a normal year, given the start that they've had this season, -139 on the money line could be a massive steal. But we know what Leverkusen are like. How do you assess this one?
Yeah, no doubt it's been a fantastic start for Kompany at Bayern. I think they're fully justified favourites here, but the total line is a bit more interesting to me, because often in these type of games, particularly in the Bundesliga with really high goal lines like this, you'll have all of the public on the overs, and very often you'll have the sharp bettors, particularly the syndicates in Asia, they'll be on the unders. For whatever reason, they find an angle in these big games where the underlying data suggests lots of goals. They find an angle in to bet the unders, and in my opinion, push the unders line too far. And so my thoughts on this game would be, if that money does come for the unders, and perhaps we see an over 3.25 line just before kickoff, then I'd be looking to back the overs. But yeah, Bayern justified favourites here.
So this is a situation where you've got to wait close till kickoff. Is that what you're suggesting here? Because at the minute, BetRivers reporting 91% of the tickets, 97% of the money on overs, most of the money on Bayern as well. So first of all, you're looking for the public money, then the professional money, and then it's Will White's money right at the end.
Yeah, that's. I mean, traditional advice would be, if you're not a professional bettor, or you're not part of a big syndicate that needs to bet in big amounts, would be to bet as early as possible. To bet as soon as the line opens. If you identify an angle in, like overs in a game that obviously, that money's going to come for the overs, is to bet as early as possible. But what I often like to do is bet as late as possible and look for overreactions when the weight of money on a particular outcome is being over-egged, because you've got the big syndicates that are making their moves, and then you've got people that identify those moves that follow them in and push the odds too far. And that happens often. And so, because I'm quite contrarian, I guess, by nature, I like to look for those moves and wait till the last possible minute to get the absolute best odds on the alternative side. And if that is the case here, that I end up on the public side on the overs, I wouldn't be comfortable on 3.5 line, but I would on the 3.25. So, and that quarter of a goal is massive, right, in Asian handicap football.
Getting some really good advice, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching here from Will, Nish says City both seem to score. Probably City can take this, but maybe 1 goal margin. Steve's been back on, says Foden 10-1 to score from outside the area. Simon says 14 of the last 16 between Bayern and Leverkusen have gone over 2.5, but we're looking for a bigger line here, over 2.5. It would be very, very short, wouldn't it? I would have thought. Let's get back to the prices for this weekend. Atleti against Real Madrid here. I think Atleti are a bit of value. They were 14-1 to win La Liga. Will, I don't know what you thought. That was before the late Celta Vigo win. They're plus 195 here. Real Madrid plus 145. Tie plus 230. The overs is minus 134. There's been a lot of goals in head-to-head matchups in all competitions between these two recently. Real Madrid, of course, are scoring for fun. But Atleti, have they regressed a little bit? Are they going sort of old school Simeone, or are they still sort of looking to be a bit more progressive? How do you see the Madrid derby?
In terms of La Liga in general, I put a bet up before the season started, I believe, or maybe it was after a couple of games, I can't remember. But I backed Lecce minus 125 to win La Liga without Barca and Real Madrid. For me, they were standout, third best team in the league. Real Sociedad, what does Rory like to call them? It's Real Sociedad.
La Real.
La Real, that's exactly. La Real have clearly regressed a lot and are missing a lot of players. Bilbao, I think, Athletic Club are probably their nearest contenders, but that price is probably long gone. I'm quite bullish at Lecce. In this match, the market shifted a lot because Mbappe is out. So now we're looking at a draw no bet main Asian line. I think at the draw no bet line, there might be some money for Real Madrid. They've still got a supremely talented starting 11. Bellingham will start here, Vinicius, Rodrigo, etc. I can see some money for Real Madrid, and then I'd be looking to back at Lecce on the plus a quarter line if it gets there. There's often a pattern in these Madrid derbies. I think home advantage is slightly diminished because it's a derby. And so I think not many bettors factor that in. And so often you'll see money for Real Madrid here. They tend to go off minus quarter of a goal away at Lecce in prior seasons. Obviously, we've got a stronger Atleti with the likes of Julian Alvarez, Sorloth, Conor Gallagher, etc. And then Real Madrid are missing their huge off-season signing, obviously. So maybe that's justified the draw no bet line. I think it should be draw no bet, but I'd be happy to back at Lecce if it gets to plus a quarter.
Yeah, most of the money on Real Madrid, most of the money on overs as well, incidentally, from Bet Rivers so far, the run-up to that game, which is on Sunday. Yeah, last 7, I think both teams to score yes for that one. And just a quick look at the Man United game against Spurs. I mean, I've said on the Premier League show for the last 2 weeks here, I cannot understand how United are favourites in these games. They were a favourite against Crystal Palace and they were backed. And yes, they should have won. And you look at the game, Will, against Palace at Selhurst Park, and they missed chance after chance after chance, hit the bar, but didn't win. And you think, well, they must win against Twente in midweek. And they were poor. They were inconsistent. They didn't really have the sort of, bounce back ability that I thought they would do off the back of that Palace game. And you just can't trust them at these sort of prices. But then the alternatives is that you think, well, I can't trust Spurs either at plus 180. So what do you think about the United Spurs game, which is 11:30 a.m. Eastern on Sunday?
I think before looking at this game in more detail, there's no way I would have been backing United here. But if you look at the underlying data, they have markedly improved this season. I mean, I don't necessarily see it with my own eyes yet, and I don't believe in it necessarily. But Spurs also away from home, their record's pretty atrocious. If you go back, I think I was listening to something. I think they've only won 3 of their last 17 away from home against non-bottom 4 teams. I mean, that's quite ridiculous for a squad of Spurs' caliber. So yeah, overall, I'm not keen to get involved in this game. The data does suggest that Man United, certainly on a draw no bet line, could be the bet here, but it's just not for me. I'm not feeling it.
1 or 2 comments regarding this one. Simon says, questions, have Man United practiced defensive set pieces? Yes, Spurs awful defending them. There's no doubt about that. We saw that on a couple of occasions, certainly against Arsenal. Steve says United can't finish an after 8 minutes at the moment. It seems that way, doesn't it? Certainly the game against Palace had some mad chances that they didn't convert. Ming Chung says, red card in the Madrid derby. It can get feisty, can't it, that game? That is for certain. Be interesting to see that one. Just to let our viewers know, we're going to wrap up short. We've still got Will's best bet, incidentally, which is a little bit of a curveball to a certain extent, but we'll get to it in a second. Bet Rivers give us all the latest news when it comes to the bets, and some, to me, random ones that we've had over the course of this weekend. We've had some good money, some big bets on Bologna Atalanta under 9.5 corners. Same play in Genoa Juventus. Don't know if unders corners in Italy is a thing this season. It's not something I'll look at. And then we dip down a few divisions in England. Wigan under 6.5 corners against Exeter. I'm just letting you know that when it comes to the Bet Rivers site, you can go far and wide with the various different bets that you can get. And if you've got an angle in a lower league game somewhere or other, then please play it. And one that really stuck out to me, I don't know if you're across this, Will. Kenny Tete under 1.5 player shots on target for Fulham against Nottingham Forest. How on earth do you deep dive into Kenny Tete shots? This is the level of detail that Bet Rivers customers get into these days. Sort of thing that you look at.
No, I'm gonna say no, but maybe somebody does have an angle into Kenny Tete's shots, but yeah, not me.
Yeah, it's very, very short price, -455. There's a significant wager on it, but good luck to that better. Will, we need your best bet before we wrap things up, and we're going to go back across the Atlantic from where we are, at least, because we're in Major League Soccer. I know that you this is a league that you bet in, that you enjoy. Tell us the play.
Yeah, I do enjoy MLS, and there's one that's just absolutely standing out to me, and it's Montreal Club de Football -117 to beat San Jose Earthquakes. It's algorithmically it seems fine. Like, this is the type of price that Montreal should be to beat San Jose at home on a normal match day, but this isn't really a normal match day. The kind of the game state doesn't really dictate that. Montreal are in the thick of the fight to make the playoffs, and San Jose, on the other hand, are languishing bottom of the table. They're 24 points off playoff contention. San Jose have not won in 8 MLS matches and are absolutely decimated by injuries. They just don't seem to really be up for it at the moment. And Montreal seem to be finding some sort of form. They've won the last 2 at home. As we know, home field advantage is huge in the MLS due to extended traveling and often moving through time zones. And in this particular case, we're looking at a West Coast San Jose team traveling through time zones to play an early kickoff in Montreal. And I do not think it should be -117. I think it should be much, much shorter. And that's my best bet of the round.
There we go. Major League Soccer and Montreal, the side to get with. Nish says United at 2.35 European odds, very doable. Also says not keen to get involved. Fancy bet for United at 2.35. What else have we got here? Someone's still talking about your piano. We still managed not to get a tune out of that on the show. It'll come. He's practicing, ladies and gentlemen. As Steve says, he's promised to knock out a tune for us. And this is one from Shakespeare. We like to finish with Shakespeare's baseball play here, because he's been in tremendous form for us this week. Is it 3 from 4 this week, including the Oakland A's on their very last game in Oakland, because they're moving, I believe. Well, it's not something that I've been across, but of course the Oakland A's made famous, certainly from my point of view, with the whole Moneyball situation. But it's a shame that they've lost another team, I believe.
Yeah, we love to see Shakespeare in the chat. Always leaves it till the last minute. And it's great to finish the show on that note for the Oakland A's last ever game. And yeah, Shakespeare's in red hot form. So thanking him again, and shout out for sending his plays in.
Yeah, indeed. And the parlay is Boston Red Sox over the Tampa Bay Rays and the Arizona Diamondbacks over the San Diego Padres at +213. We're going to start tracking Shakespeare's plays, so to speak. You know what I'm talking about. Will, thanks for your company. Wish your best bet well. Wish all of our viewers well over the course of this betting weekend. Some brilliant soccer fixtures, some good tennis as well, and obviously the NFL. We will be back on Monday for a review of the weekend, looking ahead to some of the Monday games, maybe a sneak peek at some of the Champions League fixtures as well. That's 11 a.m. Eastern. Many thanks to Will and to everyone who's joined on the chat as well. Enjoy your betting weekend. Lots of shows out as well. Premier League show with myself, Nigel and Jack. The European show with myself, James and Steve. Get stuck into those. Some really good picks over the course of this weekend. For today, though, that is your lot. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday.